Please subscribe, comment and share. Who is Kamala Harris? Harris was born on October 20, 1964, in Oakland, California, at Kaiser Permanente Oakland Medical Center. Who are Harris's parents? Harris's parents, Donald J. Harris and Shyamala Gopalan, met in 1962 while attending the University of California, Berkeley, for graduate school. Married in 1963, the couple welcomed daughter Kamala in 1964, followed by daughter Maya in 1967, according to the New York Times. The family moved from the San Francisco Bay Area to the Midwest for teaching opportunities in Illinois and Wisconsin. But in 1972, the couple divorced, and Gopalan returned to Oakland with her two daughters. Gopalan earned a doctorate in nutrition and endocrinology from UC Berkeley the same year Kamala was born. A distinguished breast cancer researcher, she worked at many of the top research institutions in the U.S. and around the world, according to her obituary. She died of colon cancer on February 11, 2009, at the age of 70. Harris, 86, is an economist and emeritus professor at Stanford University. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris's birth certificate has been shared in posts online as proof that the Democratic presidential candidate is not of Asian American or Black Jamaican heritage. Harris's birth certificate does not include her race. It lists her mother's birthplace as India and her mother's race as Caucasian, while her father's birthplace is listed as Jamaica and his race as Jamaican. One said the birth certificate proves she is not Black, pointed to her mother being listed as Caucasian and said, she's a white woman. Harris, however, has both Black Jamaican and Indian ancestry. The social media posts misinterpret historical racial classifications, conflating Caucasian with white, which is inaccurate. Since announcing her presidential campaign, Harris has been targeted by sexist and racist misinformation. Republican candidate Donald Trump has said she only recently began identifying as Black, which is false. Caucasian mother. Harris's mother, Shyamala Gopalan, self-identified as Caucasian in her daughter's 1964 birth certificate. Indians were classified as white Caucasian in the U.S. in the 1960s, Prema Kurian, Dakoff faculty scholar at Syracuse University, said in an email. This is probably why Harris's mother picked Caucasian as the term to use. That may have meant something different to her than white, Kurian said. Anthropologists had thought people from the Caucasus mountain region included Europeans and Indians. Natasha Sharma, director of the Asian American Studies program at Northwestern University, said in an email. This anthropological science led to the classification of Indians in the U.S. as Caucasian, Sharma said. Caucasian, not white. In 1923, the U.S. Supreme Court determined that Caucasian is not the same as white. At that time, and until relatively recently, people haven't used the term white but used the term Caucasian, Sharma said. She said that back then, Indians might have been grouped into the latter category. The U.S. Supreme Court in 1923 that although anthropologists classified Indians as Caucasian, they were not white as commonly understood in the U.S., thus making them ineligible for citizenship under a 1790 law, naturalizing any free white person. The U.S. v. Bhagat Singh Thin said the words Caucasian and white person were treated as synonymous in the U.S. based on popular meaning, but that the two terms are not identical. Indians in U.S. Census. The racial classification for Indians changed over the 20th century. When updating its policy in 1995, the Office of Management and Budget noted that Asian Indians had counted as Hindus in censuses from 1920 to 1940 but as white in 1950 to 1970. In 1978, an OMB included Indians in the Asian or Pacific Islander racial category. It was not until 1980 that Asian Indian was included as a category in the U.S. Census after mobilization from Indian American advocacy groups, Kurian said. Bhakirathi Mani, the presidential Penn Compact professor of English at the University of Pennsylvania, said via phone call this categorization over the years was not consistent. as the categories for Asians expanded, included an option for Asian Indian, as well as write-in options and examples for other Asian. Census data is based on self-identification. Donald Harris self-identified as Jamaican. Harris's father Donald Harris grew up in Jamaica, immigrated to the U.S. in 1961 and self-identified his race as Jamaican in Harris's birth certificate. The U.S. Census currently includes people of Jamaican heritage among groups considered to be Black or African American. Jamaica's population largely consists of descendants of enslaved Africans brought by the English to work the island's sugar estates, with a small proportion having mixed Afro-European ancestry, according to the University of the West Indies in Jamaica. Verdict: false. The word Caucasian in Kamala Harris's birth certificate does not mean Harris is white, contrary to online posts that negate her Indian and Jamaican descent. This article was produced by the Reuters fact-check team. About our fact-checking work. Kamala D. Harris is the Vice President of the United States. She always fights for the people, from her barrier-breaking time as District Attorney of San Francisco and Attorney General of California, to proudly serving as a United States Senator and the Vice President. On January 20, 2021, Kamala Harris was sworn in as Vice President, the first woman, the first Black American, and the first South Asian American to be elected to this position. As Vice President, she has worked to bring people together to advance opportunity, deliver for families, and protect fundamental freedoms across the country. She has led the fight for the freedom of women to make decisions about their own bodies, the freedom to live safe from gun violence, the freedom to vote, and the freedom to drink clean water and breathe clean air. While making history at home, she is also representing the nation abroad, embarking on more than a dozen foreign trips, traveling to more than 19 countries, and meeting with more than 150 world leaders to strengthen critical global alliances. The Vice President has been a trusted partner to President Joe Biden as they work together to deliver monumental achievements that are life-changing for millions of Americans. Together, they have invested in the economy to create a record number of jobs and keep unemployment low. Their work has led to more small business creation in a 2-year period than any previous administration. They capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors, cut prescription prices, and improved maternal health by expanding postpartum care through Medicaid. They passed the first meaningful gun safety law in 3 decades. Forming a bipartisan coalition, they enacted a $1 trillion investment in the country's infrastructure to remove every lead pipe in America and make the most significant investment in public transit, repairing bridges, and high-speed internet in history. As President of the Senate, Vice President Harris set a new record for the most tie-breaking votes cast by a vice president in history, surpassing a record that had stood for nearly 200 years. And her votes have been consequential. This includes casting the decisive vote to secure passage of the landmark Inflation Reduction Act, the largest investment ever in tackling the climate crisis. She also presided over the unprecedented vote to confirm the first Black woman, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, to the Supreme Court while working alongside President Biden to achieve historic representation of women and people of color among nominees at all levels of the federal government. At every step of the way, I've been guided by the words I spoke from the first time I stood in a courtroom. Kamala Harris, for the people. Kamala Harris, August 19, 2020. Fighting for the people is nothing new for Vice President Kamala Harris.